And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you follow the safety regulations that your employers provide you. I'm Kevin Biniazan. Welcome to Legal Lunch Break. This is a show that serves up tasty bites from the world of law. Today, we take a look at HBO's mega hit Chernobyl. The miniseries tells a story of one of the worst nuclear reactor meltdowns in history. For being a highly dramatized depiction, the show actually gives us some surprisingly accurate details from the historical perspective. Many of the shots in the show were actually modeled after original source footage from Chernobyl at the time. However, today we're going to restrict ourselves to a legal perspective. It's estimated that tens of thousands of people died as a result of what happened, and another million or more were hurt through no fault of their own. And so the question becomes, who's to blame? Who's at fault, and who is legally liable for what happened to these families and to these people? And today, we're going to do our best to explain who has legal responsibility and who had it back then in Chernobyl and what it would mean in the United States if it were to happen today. The show picks up the day before the event when the plant managers are discussing whether or not to go forward with a planned test of the nuclear reactor 4, which, as we all know now, didn't turn out very well. Let's look at some scenes.
I've just had a call from the grid controller in Kiev. He says we can't lower power any further, not for another 10 hours.
The grid controller? Where does he get off
It's
telling
not
us?
the grid controller's decision, Diatlov. It's the end of the month. All the productivity quotas. Everyone's working overtime, the factories need power, someone's pushing down from above. Not that we'll ever know who.
Not unusual. A lot of times in the cases that we're building, whether it's a company or an organization, what you have is some power structure from above putting pressure on the people that are actually performing the job, whether it's promotions, profit, whatever it may be. So this is pretty usual.
So do we have to scrap it or what?
No, I don't think so. No, if we need to wait 10 hours, we wait.
Running half power, we're not going to have stability issues.
No, I should think...
I'm not asking you.
It's safe. We'll maintain at 1600. I'll go home, get some sleep, come back tonight. We'll proceed then. I'll personally supervise the test, and it will be completed.
So what's jumping out at me there is that you have the plant manager who's asking other folks whether it should be scrapped. And in those conversations, if we're ever lucky enough to find out that those happened in an actual case, what that shows is that they're already thinking about the worst case scenario, whether it's even possible that they can move forward safely. And you hear them talk about the stability of the reactor, which means that they are concerned this test may not be safe. That should be their first warning flag. That should be the first red flag that says, let's put this off, let's wait for another day.
What are you doing?
We have to shut all the way down.
No.
We could be in a xenon pit. We have to shut down and wait 24 hours.
No, we're doing the test tonight. Raise power to 700.
We can't raise the power from here for rules.
Don't talk to me about rules.
If we fall from 80%...
No, we fell from 50%.
So that is warning sign number 2, at the very least. When you have something actually from the field and you're looking at this reactor or an employee is looking at a situation, you've got warning signs and you've got a protocol that an industry is supposed to follow, which is let's shut this baby down for 24 hours. We'll try it again. This is what we were talking about earlier where there's a guy that's just trying to push through the test even though it's not going to be safe.
Rules.
Don't talk to me about rules.
If we fall from 80%...
No, we fell from 50% of power.
50%, it's even
The rules don't
worse.
say 50. There is no rule.
Comrade Diatlov, I apologize, but what you're saying makes no sense.
Raise the power.
No.
So if we were building this case in the real world, what we'd be doing is we'd be getting experts, or we'd hire experts in the field, similar to the nuclear engineer that talks in this episode, to explain what somebody should do in this situation, what this engineer with the information and the facts at hand should have done based on the industry standards. And it sounds like they're trying to tell him, shut this thing down, but he's still denying it and refusing it.
See, if I say it's safe, and if the two of you disagree, then you don't have to work here, and you won't. But not just here, you won't work at Kursk, or Ignalina, or Leningrad, or Novovoronezh, you won't work anywhere ever again. I'll see to it. I think you know I will see to it. Raise the power.
So when we're building a case, sometimes we come across facts that are so egregious that it doesn't fit under the mold of just somebody being unreasonable, but it really is somebody just completely disregarding human health, human safety, human life. And when those situations happen, we're getting into a different echelon or a different level of legal responsibility. Even in the civil world, we're talking about how we can punish these people with punitive damages, which is actually a higher degree of money just to show them that what they were doing was wrong. And with Dyatlov here, where he's being faced with the decision that he knows it's not safe, based on the information to him, if we would prove, or if we could prove that he was in a complete disregard for human life, we're just into another area of damages for this case.
Raise the power.
I would like you to record your command.
Raise the power.
No, it's just being an ass. So fun tip for those of you who may be in a work environment where somebody is telling you to do something that you don't want to do. If it ever comes back in a legal civil setting, what we're always looking for are document trails or messages of authority to see who actually made the decision. So just like he's doing here to get a recording of his command, get some emails, send some emails, document it so that you can cover yourself. The first 4 episodes of the mini-series really document what happened after the fact, what happened after the explosion and how it affected the city and the country and the engineers' quest to try and figure out what really happened. But from a legal perspective, the 5th episode, the final episode, really takes place in the courtroom. And this is where the state, the Soviet Union, is putting on trial the 3 engineers and the 3 plant managers that were actually there that day to find them responsible, legally liable for what happened and the disaster. But the hidden message throughout the whole show is not really whether these 3 plant managers were responsible, which, as we have seen, surely they probably were and would be here in the United States. But the real message is, was the state responsible? And the show goes through the challenge of the head nuclear engineer as he struggles with this idea of confronting the USSR, the Soviet Union, with the harsh truth that they could have prevented something like this by designing the reactor differently.
The tips are made of graphite, which accelerates reactivity.
Why?
It's cheaper.
Not only did the state or the Soviet Union here do this or make this decision about the graphite rods to save money, to balance their books, but really the worst part is that they withheld that information from their engineers. Even the 3 plant managers that they're putting on trial, they provided them documents that were redacted that didn't tell them the danger of this graphite-tipped boron rod. And the result of that was when they're making the decision, the life or death decision that they made on April 25th and 26th of 1986, they didn't have the information available to themselves to make sure that they acted safely.
No one in the room that night knew the shutdown button could act as a detonator. They didn't know it because it was kept from them.
Professor Legasov, if you mean to suggest the Soviet state is somehow responsible for what happened, then I must warn you, you are treading on dangerous ground.
And those are the situations where you have a company or an organization just as responsible, if not more responsible, for the harms that are caused to people than the actual employees and the servants that are actually doing the work for them. Because sometimes the institutional knowledge is really what hurts people, not just the people with their boots on the ground. It's easy to watch the miniseries and judge the Soviet Union, but the same thing happens here. the one topic that goes overlooked is what we call sovereign immunity. And in the United States, the government, the federal government, is immune and not responsible for torts or harms to people and their citizens. Now that all changed in 1946. In 1946, after the Empire State Building had a terrible disaster where a plane had flown into the building and killed dozens of people, Congress came together and they decided to push forward some legislation that would allow individual citizens who have been hurt by wrongs, by the wrongs of employees of the government, to seek some sort of legal action to get compensated, whether it's for their medical bills, whether it's the loss of their husband or wife or whatever it may be, just as if anybody else had done something wrong. Now that applies here, but what's important to note that the Federal Tort Claims Act only allows you to sue for the wrongs of employees of the government. Well, what we're looking at in the Chernobyl series are employees, the plant managers that did something wrong, but also the bigger, more egregious decision of the government to withhold information and not provide what is needed to these managers in order to make the safety decision that's required of them. If we're in the United States with the Federal Tort Claims Act and you're trying to seek some sort of remedy from the federal government, whether it's a car crash, nuclear disaster, or a terrible incident like the Empire State Building, what you have is the opportunity to be successful against the employees, but you're still not going to be able to bring a lawsuit for the discretionary governmental decisions of the government themselves. And that is something that I personally think should change, that we should be able to go out and find out who is responsible, regardless of who they are, whether it's federal government, local government, or otherwise. Nobody's above the law, and our courtroom should be open to find out the truth. Thanks for spending your lunch break with me today. If you didn't enjoy the video, give me a thumbs down, but if you did, give me a thumbs up, send some comments, comment and let me know what you may want me to talk about the next lunch break, and I can't wait to see you then.